Hey guys, so today is going to be a lot of information. We're actually not even going to be doing anything with our hands today. We're not going to be coloring anything, drawing anything, nothing like that. We're just gaining information for our new project. So the next project that we're starting is the Eye of the Dragon. And you'll notice that in our slides that there's going to be lots of links. And so if you guys want to get a better look at them, feel free to pop on into the slides and click the links. You have access to all of it. But otherwise, I'm going to kind of talk us through all of the information that you're seeing on the screen as well. So our first step is we're going to just check out some creatures' eyes to get an idea of like what we could do with our dragon eyes and to be inspired, things like that. So we're going to, where it says check out some of other creatures' eyes here, we're going to click on that, and I'm going to go big screen on this too. So you guys can kind of play along as I'm going through, but we're just trying to guess whose eye is this. So what do you think? What could it be? We're noticing that slat in there. So when you're making your dragon eye, you get to choose the shape of your pupil. Maybe it's going to be round, like a human's eyes. Maybe it's going to be kind of this slit shape, like whatever this animal might be. Or maybe it would be rectangular, like a goat eye. Maybe it's a totally different shape that we don't even see typically or ever in real life. So whose is this? What do we think? It's a cat. Okay. Let's see. Next, whose eye is this? This is a pretty cool eye, right? So things I love to notice about this one is when we look at a human's eye, the eyelid is very smooth, right? Like there's not ridges or anything on it. But with this eye, whatever creature this is, we're noticing all these cool ridges on the eyelid. So that's something you could make with your dragon eye for sure. Another thing that I'm noticing about this eye is just how cool the colors are. So this is something called a color gradation, and we're going to talk a lot about this today. But basically, I want you to notice how it's going from like this brown to like a lighter brown into a red orange, orange, yellow, and if you look real closely, you'll even notice that it's starting to turn into green as it gets close to the pupil. How cool is that color gradation, you guys? What do we think it is? It's a chicken. So cool, right? All right, whose eye is this? So another one that has super cool like scales and ridges around the eye. We can see some color gradation even happening here too. And in the eye, once again, we've got these cool brown and amber colors speckled with some gold. And then what I love about this eye is how the pupil actually looks kind of like a solar eclipse, right? Like it looks like the moon blocking the sun. How cool is that? And also notice this really neat, this is what's called a highlight. So you can even see it in my eyes here, like the white spots. They're not actually white there, right? It's the light reflecting off of my eyes. And those highlights really do help add life and character to whatever you're creating. So what do we think this is? It is an iguana. So cool, right? All right, whose eye is this? This is another one where it's just like kind of got some cool speckles in it. Noticing the different shape of the eye as well. I like how it's like really golden colored, but then you can almost see like an amber colored circle with like almost sunbeams coming out in it, which is so cool. So once again, there's so many textures and designs that we can put in these eyes to make them really unique and cool. So what do we think? This one is an eagle, right? So some cool eyes. And what eye is this? Well, of course, it could be your dragon. So we're going to be designing those. So we're starting it from scratch here, you guys. We are just figuring out like how are we doing this. So today is a big discussion day. So our next thing, if we look at our step 2, we're going to discuss gradation. All right. What does that mean? What does it look like? We are going to be practicing it tomorrow during our next class. But we need to know what it is first. So let's check that out. I'm going to go back to slide 1. So here's some things that we need to know before we get started. Back when we did our graphic designs, we talked about warm and cool colors. We're going to need to know that again. we should just always know that. Like really warm and cool colors, that is a staple in all art projects. Knowing the difference between them and how to use them to make cool things happen. So first, let's figure out what are considered the warm colors. There's 3. What do we think? Like in my head, when I think of warm, I think of like a warm fire. So if I was coloring a picture of a warm fire, what 3 colors would I use? Red, orange, yellow. Those are my warm colors. And just as a heads up to you guys, when we have our test at the end of the semester, this is going to be a question on there. What are the warm colors? So definitely like have that mental image in your head of like a warm fire. What colors? These are our colors. Those are your warm colors, okay? We definitely want to know that. So now let's flip to the other side of our color wheel. What are the cool colors? So when I picture this in my head, cool, I think of cool water, right? Sitting by a lake on some grass and looking out at the water. What colors do I see? Well, I see the blue of the water. I see the green reflecting in the water or from the grass and the trees. And then I see in those real deep spots that kind of purpley color too. So that's how I envision my cool colors, is sitting by a cool lake and just seeing the greens, the blues, and the purples there. Okay, so definitely want to know those as well. So we're going to need to know the difference between warm and cool colors and just kind of how that color wheel looks in order to do gradation. But what is gradation? How do you do it? What does this mean? Because we are going to be doing this in class for this whole project. So gradation is a color graduation. So meaning it goes from like one color to the next on the color wheel. So it's just transitioning from one color to the next. So like if I look at this color wheel going from like orange to yellow, but you can see that there's like a color in between here, right? And that's helping it graduate from one color to the next. And then from yellow to green, there's like a yellow green in between. So you can see this gradation. So it's kind of like when we did those visual puns and we did our shading before, going from like, you know, the grayscale of like the really dark grays to the lighter grays, and then like where it's like almost white. That's with the black, white, and grayscale. That's shading. With colors, when we're using these colors next to each other, it's called gradation. All right. So once again, you need to be using colors that are either next to each other on the color wheel, that are neighbors with each other on the color wheel, or you can actually even use a gradation just within the same color. So like from dark blue to medium blue to light blue. That also works for a gradation too. So it's kind of like, once again, it's kind of like shading, but with color. So you guys should have a color worksheet that came with your supply box. And so we're going to be using that. Actually, you should have 2 in there just in case we, mess up at all, or we want to try, the oil pastels that came in our kit versus maybe if you wanted to see how the same stuff works with color pencils, if you've got those at home. I don't mind if you use color pencils on this project. I like oil pastels because they blend together really well because they're a soft medium, but they do get a little bit messy sometimes. So some people prefer color pencils because they're a little cleaner, but they aren't going to blend quite as well as oil pastels do. So pros and cons to each. You guys can kind of play around and choose what you like. Anyway, here's some examples of gradation, and this is what we're going to be doing with our practice sheet starting next class. But you can kind of see, like, we start with red. If we're doing from red to yellow anyway, start with red. We add in some orange, and we kind of overlap it a little bit, right? Then we bring in some of the yellow, and once again, we're overlapping it. So you can see how it goes from red to red orange to orange to yellow to yellow. Here's a blue to green gradation, a dark green to light green gradation, a violet to blue gradation, and then once again, the red to yellow. And once again, it's any of these colors next to each other on that color wheel. So we could go from orange to a yellow orange to a yellow green to a green, just like we do in the circle here. So lots of different examples of color gradation. So looking here, like, can we see some different color gradation happening? If we look real close at the pupil, you can see that it goes from blue to green to a light green to yellow to orange to a red, orange to red. Like this eye has almost the full spectrum in there. The only color we're missing is violet. We've got yellow to orange to red here. We've got violet to blue to light blue here. There's so many color gradations happening in here, and we're going to be practicing with that as well. In fact, let's get to your exercise sheet. So we're going to be doing this in class tomorrow, but I just want to point it out today. So this is going to be where you just kind of straight up from blue to green, from dark green to light green, and just making those color gradations. And then this is where we're going to do that practice. So kind of like with our visual puns, where we segmented and we colored each little part separately. Similar story here, only now we're using colors and we're using gradation. So definitely make sure that you are bringing your color gradation sheet for next class, oil pastels, and eventually we're going to need paper, pencil, permanent marker as well, because you are going to be eventually designing your own dragon eyes. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Keep me posted if any of this didn't make sense and you have any questions on it.